next two shows of this program. Tom Pelisero will be sitting in this chair.
Hey,
joining us right now, Tommy P. Joining us from, where are you? What's happening right now? Are you with Walter White somewhere? Like avoiding public detection. What is happening right now? Where are you right now?
Yeah, the RV is actually parked right out there,
Good.
Rich. We'll be cooking right after this spot. No, I believe I am in Pequot Lakes, Minnesota. Got back from.
So we're personal time offing. We're PTOing after ITC. Is that what's happening?
I wouldn't quite say PTOing. I would say a 2-week training camp tour, 13 teams in 12 days.
Damn.
Followed by immediately coming to Los Angeles to host the Rich Eisen Show.
Oh, okay.
And my family being up here with friends, we had to squeeze it in.
Okay.
So made the late night trip. We'll watch Shedeur Sanders and the Browns tonight. And then we'll head back tomorrow to get this thing rolling.
Well, then I appreciate the 15 minutes of you actually spending time with us before you spend more time with us instead of your fam. So all clear with Anthony Richardson's hand, right? After everything last night?
It sounds like it dislocated pinky. I think that last night probably raises, as you were documenting off the top of the show, some other questions with regard to Anthony Richardson. Now, he had a really good practice in the joint practices with the Ravens a couple of days ago. It was one of the more encouraging moments that he's had through the course of the offseason. Made people believe, okay, you can see this thing maybe tracking in the right direction with Anthony Richardson at a time that, to be quite honest, he basically got to overtake Daniel Jones for his own job, because Jones was the one who was there and healthy through the course of the spring. Anthony Richardson was rehabbing that shoulder issue. Now, Daniel Jones obviously got a lot of the reps last night. Shane Steichen said he's got to recalibrate in terms of his plan for how they're going to handle things with regard to the quarterback reps through the rest of the preseason here. Richardson has work cut out, and the biggest thing that Daniel Jones has going for him, get the ball to the right. With Anthony Richardson, you still have those questions just based on the inexperience, whether he's going to be able to do that on a consistent basis.
All right, Tom Pelisero here on the Rich Eisen Show. Just across the street yesterday, the biggest injury to date of the NFL season, Rashawn Slater goes down, and so he's done for the year, correct? And then on top of that, what does this mean? Joe Alt now moves over. What do you think Jim's plan is here to replace one of the best and obviously the best paid and recently so left tackle in the business? Tom.
Well, first of all, if you question ever why some players hold out, hold in, refuse to participate in practice until they get their deal, a left tackle just having a freak injury and tearing his patella in practice is a pretty good argument for why Rashawn Slater didn't do a whole lot in the early stages of training camp. Obviously, just a brutal blow for the Chargers. Joe Alt, that is the logical plan. My understanding is that is definitely a strong consideration to flip him to left tackle here. You have Jamari Sawyer, who was a starter before Joe Alt got to L.A. That would be one other option. They got some veterans like Trey Pipkins. You're protecting Justin Herbert. I mean, that's your most valuable guy. That's the one that Jim Harbaugh said repeatedly here in the preseason. Everybody's got to get up to Justin Herbert's level. Now all of a sudden you take away his left tackle. The issue is you lose a running back, a receiver, a linebacker. Like, a lot of times you can trade for somebody. You can look at other people's depth. Nobody's given up a left tackle right now. There aren't 32 of those guys walking the planet as it is. People don't even want to trade their swing tackles because things can happen here. The good news is they do have some depth at that spot, and it quite possibly is going to be Joe Alt stepping into a really big role after playing exclusively right tackle, to this point, flipping over to left. And, just kind of being able to patch together the rest of it from there.
Tom Pelisero joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show. So no Jerry Jones and no Micah Parsons spotted at Cowboys practice in Oxnard. You see stuff like that, and you're like, okay, could they possibly be somewhere to hammer this problem out? And, who knows? Obviously, maybe you do. What is the crux of it? Like, what is the crux of it that Jerry thought they had a handshake agreement that Micah Parsons has essentially reneged on? I might be oversimplifying it, and he's one of those old school guys that you don't do that to him. And Micah is one of those new kids, if you will, on the block who are like, yeah, I did speak to you, but I'm being disrespected by being made to go through all of this. And I'm not apologizing for that. I just had my agent get involved. And I don't care who he is or what the Cowboys are. I don't want to play there anymore, and I actually will not. And am I simplifying everything, or is that basically it, Tom?
That is a significant part of it. And you saw it in Micah Parsons' lengthy statement he put out on social media 1 week ago today, requesting a trade. And he mentioned in there, I no longer want to be a part of the Cowboys, but also I no longer want to be held to contract talks that occurred without my agent present. That's referring to what Jerry Jones thought he had in terms of an agreement based upon conversations between Micah and Jerry 6 months ago, 5-6 months ago. So when you're talking about negotiations and how they play out in the NFL, there's only a couple of teams in recent NFL history that have kind of defied the way that this is supposed to work, the way that this is required to work. You had Bill Belichick would make a habit of bringing in players and negotiating directly with them without the agent present. And you had Jerry Jones, who there have been a number of occasions where, everybody knows part of Jerry's MO is whether you're hitting a snag in contract negotiations, you're trying to get ahead of it, Jerry will invite somebody up to his office and basically try to hammer it out face to face. So while it seemed like that was what took place with Micah, there was never an involvement of Micah's agent. And of course, Jerry made the famous comment now that, well, I don't know what his agent's name is. It's David Mulugeta, who has negotiated over $1 billion in contracts this year. He is not a difficult guy to get a hold of. And I'm not going to sit here and do a David Mulugeta infomercial for you right now, but it's not as if you have like a long history of him being difficult to work with or not being able to get deals done. Not only have the Cowboys never just submitted a contract proposal in writing, that's what negotiations are. It's exchanging of bargaining proposals. Not only have they never sent in writing a contract proposal, they've never even had a conversation. They've never even had contract talks with Micah's agent. That's not how this is supposed to work, and it makes it hard to believe that the Cowboys and Jerry Jones can continue to say, well, fans should any sleep over this. Maybe not the idea that, this is their truth. It's been a week since he requested a trade, and as of last night, there still hadn't been one conversation other than on multiple occasions, Micah's agent saying, hey, we're ready when you are for business. There's been nothing in terms of actually trying to hammer out a contract. Here we are, 27 days from Cowboys-Eagles in the kickoff game? They're nowhere right now. And so without reading too much into what Mike is feeling, you certainly see in that statement his frustration of, why does it have to be like this? I'm not just going to sit here and have no talks and you're not talking to my agent. Until that happens, a deal is not going to get done. And at the same time, whatever trade interest is out there, the Cowboys don't seem interested at this stage in trading Micah Parsons, which makes some sense because trading in August is not when you're going to maximize the value, even if you were wanting to move the player.
Let's talk a little bit about a third rail subject matter, which is, Parsons has somehow worn out his welcome with people in that building over the years. The previous coaching staff might tell you some stories, right? And, Tank Lawrence might tell you some stories now from Seattle. And that Jerry is kind of fighting a fight on that regard as well. Is there any truth to that? Is there something going behind the scenes here, Tom?
There have been, and we reported back on Super Bowl Sunday, there were internal conversations going back to last year about, potentially should they trade Micah Parsons. And that was as much because of the top nature of the roster. And does it really wise to sign a guy for, at the time, 35 or 40 or now $45 million per year? Well, you already got Dak and CD making the money that they're making. But if Jerry Jones were concerned about personal dynamics, locker room dynamics, coachability, the fact that Micah kind of does his own thing in the spring and isn't a full-time participant in OTAs, if you had those concerns, you wouldn't have been negotiating, or whatever you want to call it, the handshake deal that you had back in the spring. Jerry Jones was willing to make a commitment to Micah Parsons. I've seen some of the things out there recently that it was, $200 million guaranteed and all that. And that, as far as I know, is not true. The highest the highest guarantee, I believe, for a defensive player ever is $123 million, and Jerry's not just going to cut a check for an extra 77 out of the goodness of his heart. But he was clearly willing to make a significant commitment to Micah Parsons. That deal ultimately, did not get done for the reasons that we just discussed. But if you were concerned and, hey, we got to get this guy out of here, you wouldn't even be willing to have that conversation. And again, if they had come to Micah or David Mulugeta back before the draft and said, hey, we're going to move you, they would have been good with it. Hey, go and all right, you're going to move on. We'll go play someplace else. We'll get a big check. You guys get all the draft capital. Well, now it's August. And while Micah has requested a trade from the Cowboys' perspective, never say never, Rich, because we saw this happen with Khalil Mack some years ago, and it came to a head right about this time. They couldn't agree on a deal, and John Gruden ended up trading him away and getting some draft capital for him. But when you're talking about not getting draft capital even in this year and not having any way to replace Micah Parsons, and by the way, Matt Eberflus has come in building his plan in part around, hey, we can use Micah in all these different ways, and this is how our scheme is built. It would really put you would in essence be signaling, I don't want to overstate this, Rich, but you would in essence be signaling this is a rebuilding type year. If you trade Micah Parsons away right now for future draft capital, you are basically saying, hey, 2025, we're going to do our best. We're probably not going to win. We're going to start building this thing again in 26 and 27. And that just doesn't seem like something that 82, 83-year-old Jerry Jones would have a really high level of interest in.
Tom Pelissero here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's look over the steering wheel. Tonight's game on our network, NFL Network, 7 Eastern Time, Browns and Carolina. Regardless of why Shedeur is getting the start, he's going to get it. What opportunity do you think he has tonight, Tom?
Well, not only is Shedeur going to get the start, Rich, he might play the whole game
right?
Or
Yeah.
very close to it.
Right.
You're talking about getting more reps than anybody normally gets in a preseason game, which is wild because, 4 days ago, it was arm soreness and Shedeur wasn't even on the field. Now he's the only guy healthy enough, besides Joe Flacco, who's 40 and probably doesn't need to play in the preseason. He's the only guy healthy enough to go out there. He's going to be with second and third stringers. The Panthers are going to play some of their guys, their first stringers. So I think that regardless of what happens, you have to try to take it with a shake or a salt here, but it's not going to happen. It's going to be a massive overreaction one way or another because Shedeur is as polarizing as he is. What the coaches are going to want to see with Shedeur is, can you operate in the offense? It's all the things that we talked about in terms of the potential concerns on the field with Shedeur at Colorado, which is, all the sacks that he takes. Is he really getting through his progressions? Can he play, in an offense that's not necessarily tailored precisely to, covering up certain things? And he doesn't have Travis Hunter. He doesn't have somebody he can throw the ball up to when he needs a play and go and get it. So the best thing Shedeur can do tonight is play clean football. Get the ball out of his hands on time. Get it where it needs to go. Don't try to play hero ball. Don't try to run around and make things happen. Don't take 10 sacks. Just go out and do your best. And again, he's going to be challenged. You got a backup offensive line, backup weapons. You're going against the Panthers defense that, we'll see what sort of stuff they dial up, but they are going to play, like I said, their guys in this game. This is going to be a challenge for Shedeur. But if you're him, would you rather have this challenge and go out and play 50, 60, 70 snaps, or everybody's healthy and you're picking up the scraps in the fourth quarter when everybody's kind of worn out and it's 3s versus 3s? I would take this opportunity if I'm Shedeur, show that you can be the guy. Again, not by playing, amazing football and creating a highlight reel. Just go out and show, hey, you say I can't play on time. You say I hold the ball. You say I take too many sacks. I'm going to show you I can take steps forward here. The hardest thing for the Browns is always going to be go to either of these rookies out of the gate as the starting quarterback, just because they got so much to learn and there is a learning curve and they both have a transition element coming from college here. They were supposed to be working behind probably Kenny Pickett in this game. Pickett's now not available. So here you go, Shedeur. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, and then we got a triple header on NFL Network on Saturday. Giants, Bills, Texans, Vikings, Jets, Packers. What are we going to see out of JJ McCarthy? What do you think? That's in the middle of the day of that Saturday.
Yeah, they're going to roll him out there.
They will.
He was really good last year in the preseason opener, and then tore his meniscus, finished off his time in that game, but then missed his entire rookie season. This has been, everybody believes in the makeup and the person and the frankly, the traits as a quarterback. It's just, is he going to be able to do it? And so this will be the first test back. Everybody always says the first time that you get hit and how do you kind of rebound from that? But for JJ, it's also showing, hey, I can play on time. I can get the ball where it needs to go. That he's capable of it, but he's just missed so much time. This is kind of a rust shaking type of a moment for JJ McCarthy. I wouldn't think one way or another that anybody internally is going to overreact to whatever we see tomorrow, but it certainly will be interesting just to see for the first time in a calendar year this guy go out there in a live situation and play football.
Yeah, Cowboys and Rams are playing that day too. We all know Matthew Stafford's out for the moment, but Sean McVay said yesterday that he would be cleared to play if this was the regular season. Does that mean the epidural did its job? Like, what's the scoop here on the back that you know?
As a guy that's had a couple of epidurals in his back, Rich, I would tell you,
Hey, now.
You can feel good, and then right up until you don't. So, we'll see. The one thing with Matthew Stafford is every year he's got something in camp. Every year it's, it's his shoulder, it's his thumb, or it's something. And then week one rolls around and one of the toughest guys, most durable guys we've seen in the NFL finds a way to play. It doesn't sound like there's any major concern there. I can tell you disc issues are fickle. And with a guy of Matthew Stafford's age, if that's something that's bugging him, he might be able to play through it. And that's what Sean McVay is saying. But playing through it and playing effectively through it are two different things. And so we'll continue to monitor that for sure.
And then lastly, before I send you back to your family, the double dip on NFL Network on Sunday. 2 more games starting at 1 Eastern time. Dolphins and Bears. Shortly before we went on the air, Ben Johnson said Caleb is not playing. So what's the scoop? I guess let's figure it out. Let's finish up here. You're reporting on Caleb Williams' progress. If he's drinking through a fire hose and they're throwing everything at him, why wouldn't they put him out in game situation right there in Soldier Field against the Dolphins, even for a little bit? What's
everybody's got their own philosophy in terms of the cadence. I would imagine you're going to see a lot of Caleb in the second game. Okay. This is probably the best opportunity for Tyson Bagent, a guy that the previous regime liked a lot, to go out there, get his reps. It's way too early for red flags on Caleb. I've seen some of the viral videos and I've seen some of the the quotes, but let's see. Caleb Williams is a gamer for sure. He finds ways to make things happen. A big part for Ben Johnson is just reining him in a little bit. That's an ongoing process. I'll be most interested to see week one, because listen, Ben Johnson is not going to roll out the whole scheme in the preseason. He's not going to have the wild plays and throwing at the tackles and pretending to fall down and all those things.
Nice.
Let's see as we get into week one. It's gonna be national TV. It's gonna be Monday Night Football.
Oh baby.
Against the Vikings. It's not that far away, Rich. Like, you think about how close week one is right now. It's under 30 days. We've still got a handful of unresolved situations across the NFL. We talked about Micah Parsons, but we still don't have resolution right now on James Cook and the Bills. He is still not practicing. I know that people have fixated on the $15 million number that he put out there at one point. My understanding is at this point, James Cook is looking for closer to what Kyron Williams got, which is 11, than he is the 15. But there's no such thing as close. There is only done. They're not far apart, but this deal is not yet done. And so keep an eye on how that entire thing plays out. I would anticipate that if I'm the Bills, I want to bring this to a head sooner than later and get the player on the field. With Terry McLaurin in Washington, that's another one. He did not travel up for the joint practices in the game against New England. Either way, the Commanders are planning on McLaurin being a part of the team and playing. He's on the roster. He's due close to $20 million. He's currently on the PUP list, but they're fully anticipating one way or another that he's going to be out there in week one. And then Trey Hendrickson, there's just not been a lot of movement on that one over the past couple of weeks. We talked about it on the show. They're more or less in agreement on the big numbers, the years and the total money. It's just about the guarantees. I can tell you, the Bengals have gotten calls about Trey Hendrickson. They haven't really signaled that they'd be willing to deal him. And similar to Dallas, if you trade him away, unless you get a pass rusher or two in return, how on a team that you expect to compete this year do you replace that type of productivity? This is 4 players of that stature, that caliber, Rich. We haven't had a lot of times recently, whether it's holdouts or in this case hold-ins, that many Pro Bowl, all-pro type guys with unresolved situations at this point in the calendar. We're going to the first preseason weekend, and that's 4 guys who are all at different stages of the same problem, which is the team is making them an offer, or in Micah's case, hypothetically would make them an offer, but they're not where the other side wants to be. And we'll see. Ultimately, everybody's got to make a choice. Every player's greatest leverage is withholding their services. Well, it's a lot different to withhold your services in early August when you might not be getting fined or fined a small amount versus getting closer to the season and suddenly having game checks taken away. We're going to be monitoring all four of those extremely closely here over the next several weeks.
Lots of unresolved situations, and after 13 days on the training camp road and 2 days in this chair at the top of next week, let's make sure that does not include your marriage. So thank you for the time, Tom. Appreciate it. The boys will see you out here next week.
I can't wait.
And I appreciate
6-hour NFL extravaganza.
That'll be next week. Tom Pelisero in this chair giving you everything you need to know.
See you soon, Tom.
While I tap out in advance of next playing season. And, of course, our move to Disney+. 844-204-RICH, number to dial. There goes Tommy P. Off he goes. Ark, you can take him off the screen now.
Why? No, we have to say, I'm making a video. Rich, what are we doing?
We're going to see him enough.
We're waving.
Plus, we got to go to break. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.